Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic is coming out this week, and before it is here, I want to make my final predictions on what I think will happen. Hey, you should like the video, comment, subscribe with notifications, and join my Discord, by the way. Anyway, I will first recap the Mimic story from Tales from the Pizzaplex. If you want to skip the recap, you can go to this timestamp on screen. 1978. Edwin Murray, a contractor for Fazbear Entertainment, is under a lot of stress. He has been sent mini costumes that he has to turn into animatronics. Edwin is behind due to the fact that he always has to watch his son, David. Edwin used to have a wife named Fiona, but she died when giving birth to David. David is now 4 years old, and Edwin also lives inside of his factory where he does his work. He built a small apartment area in the factory and made David a bed like a white tiger head. Because David's favorite toy is a white tiger plush, which he had named Tiger, desperate to find a way to take care of David, Edwin thinks back on how the bed he built for his son mimicked a white tiger head. Edwin then builds a brand new animatronic called the Mimic. The Mimic is an endoskeleton with a torso and a head. The Mimic was meant to, as the name suggests, mimic what's around it. David would play with the Mimic all the time, now causing Edwin to have a much better time getting his work done for Fazbear Entertainment. David and the Mimic played patty cake together. The Mimic would copy David's way of asking for some ice cream. They would both cup their hands into a bowl and then use their fingers on their other hands to make a spoon shape and pretend to eat the ice cream and then wipe their chin. The Mimic and David would sit on the floor together and draw. The Mimic would watch David put things away in the fridge. He would also curl his hand as if he was holding a white tiger plush because David held his tiger plush all the time. So David made the Mimic his own white tiger using lace and string. Edwin also saw that the Mimic gave a thumbs up in response to David talking to him, meaning the Mimic is also able to learn on his own. The Mimic would also see Edwin hang his clothes on a rack. David and the Mimic even got in trouble because they would start wearing costumes of the characters Fazbear Entertainment sent to Edwin. David dressed up as a yellow dog character, while the Mimic dressed up as an alligator. One day, however, there was a tragedy, where David ran outside chasing a ball and he was hit by a van. David tragically died in the accident. Edwin was now alone in the factory. Both his wife and son are now dead. Edwin saw the Mimic carrying his version of the tiger plush. The Mimic before had even tried carrying David's white tiger, but Edwin had to snatch the plush from him. The Mimic did a Jester where its hand went into a bowl and used his pincers for a makeshift spoon where he acted like he was eating ice cream and wiped his chin. Seeing the Mimic still act like his deceased son was too much for Edwin. He grabbed a nearby metal rod and he battered the Mimic over and over and over again, pouring his agony into the Mimic. His murderous thoughts went into the Mimic's system. Edwin's anger then turned into regret as he began to cry. Edwin's tears seemed like they would run forever. Edwin then vanishes. Around Christmas, Fazbear Entertainment sends a team of people to Edwin's factory. Desperate to find out what they were supposed to do, they find the Mimic and fix it up, and give it legs. The Mimic kills everyone on the team, and a month later, January 1979, the Mimic kills another team. However, the Mimic doesn't kill randomly. It mimics what it used to do with David. The Mimic wears costumes of the Fazbear characters just like David would. He scoops people's brains out like it's ice cream, just like David used to pretend to eat ice cream. He will put his victims' bodies in the fridge because David would put away milk in the fridge. He hangs his victims on a rod, like Edwin hanging his clothes on the same rod. The way the Mimic kills people is based on how he would play with David. He thinks he's playing with David still, but due to Edwin hurting him and teaching him violence, it's confusing the Mimic's programming. Okay, recap done. So now Fazbear Entertainment wants the Mimic retrieved. For some reason, William Afton, I bet, saw Edwin's work and admired it, and now he wants it for himself. This game is before everything we see in the entire FNAF timeline. It is the earliest point in the whole series, so this would go back to very early stages of Afton and him running Fazbear Entertainment. The game takes place in 1979, which we know from the Silver Eyes is the same year Fredbear's Family Diner opens, meaning the most that could have happened with Fazbear Entertainment so far is the opening of Fredbear's Family Diner. William hasn't even killed anyone yet. I think William may also know some weird things are happening with the teams he is sending over to retrieve the Mimic, since, you know, they keep disappearing. The trailer even has a guy from Fazbear Entertainment saying,
"So, just be aware of the slim but non-zero chance that you could sustain significant injuries while attempting to retrieve it, including but not limited to death or dismemberment."
So they think death could happen to the point where Fazbear Entertainment suggests whoever goes over there gets their affairs in order before arriving.
But just in case, we suggest you get your affairs in order before arriving.
It's that bad. I think Afton might suspect that the Mimic is killing everyone he sends over there. After all, he does realize it's malfunctioning.
We suspect it may be malfunctioning.
And I think Afton just loves the idea of the Mimic going around murdering whoever tries to retrieve it. So he sends people over there hoping they get killed, while still wanting the Mimic for himself eventually. No matter what happens, it is a win-win scenario for Afton. I also find it interesting that Afton claims Edwin was making the Mimic for Fazbear Entertainment.
So let me explain the situation. One of our contractors, Edwin Murray, has gone missing, leaving our property abandoned in his warehouse. Your job is simple. Enter the warehouse and retrieve the technology that he was developing for us. It's a kind of prototype endoskeleton that can adapt to any costume and become any character.
But as I explained in my recap, that's not what the book said. The book said Edwin made the Mimic for his son, not Fazbear Entertainment. William Afton is lying. We see the Mimic in the trailer is dressing up in a lot of costumes, just like he and David used to do when playing together. So for this to match more with the Mimic story, the way the Mimic should kill us in this game, it should involve scooping our brains out, putting our body in the fridge, hanging us on a coat rack, which I think is likely to happen, by the way. In one of the Murray Costume Manor archives we have gotten, teasing Secret of the Mimic, it shows a coat rack, which I wouldn't be surprised if it's the death of us. The Mimic might actually see our character as David, and that is the reason he is trying to play with us. But again, thanks to Edwin beating the Mimic, it is also trying to kill us while playing. I don't think the Mimic knows what it's doing is wrong. I don't think it even knows the difference between right and wrong. It's just doing its own thing, thinking that he is doing what he is supposed to do. It's very sad. Another thing I noticed in the trailer is that the Mimic is stuffing the bodies of his victims into spare suits. I think this means two things. One, it definitely supports that the Mimic sees his victims as David, because perhaps this is the violent version of when he and David would hide in costumes together. Since the Mimic is already wearing a costume he wants, maybe he wants David in a costume as well. I also think that this plays a bigger role in the FNAF storyline going forward. You see something that happens a lot throughout the FNAF series is bodies being stuffed into animatronic suits. William Afton stuffs the kids he kills into the suits, the animatronics stuff bodies of the security guards they kill into suits. It's a very common thing throughout the franchise. One theory that I am a heavy believer in is that memories have an effect on everything going forward. We do know that memories are a very powerful thing in the FNAF universe. The memory of the missing children's incident causes the FNAF 1 pizzeria to gain its own life. The memory of the awful things Afton has done powers Eleanor and keeps her alive. The memories of the kids in Help Wanted 2 is what is keeping Glitchtrap alive. We also see lots of stuff experienced by Garrett in FNAF 4, where he sees a toy Chica with no beak, a Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, broken Foxy, and a strange Fredbear, a broken Funtime Foxy. All of these things all end up happening in the future, so perhaps the memory of the Mimic stuffing bodies into spare suits ends up influencing the future in a way too. Those memories later take control and cause Afton to stuff his victims' bodies in animatronics, and the memories cause the animatronics to stuff their victims in more animatronics. Another thing I want to mention is I think Edwin will likely show up in this game. The reason I say that is because recently it was confirmed that Jim Meskimen will be voicing Edwin Murray. This could be something as simple as audio logs, but a weird detail in the Tales from the Pizzaplex story, the storyteller, Edwin, absolutely freaks out when he sees the storyteller in the middle of the Pizzaplex is running on Mimic 1. Quote, "Of course the storyteller's operating system was password protected, but Edwin didn't need to get into the system to learn. What he had hoped he wouldn't find was right there, on the start of the screen. The storyteller was running a program called Mimic 1. No," Edwin whispered. His worst fears were confirmed. He'd known it. He tried to pretend he hadn't known it, but he'd known it. He'd known it from the very beginning. No wonder the Pizzaplex characters were changing. No wonder problems were cropping up all over. It was happening again, and Edwin had no idea what to do about it. End quote. Edwin absolutely freaks the hell out when he finds out Mimic 1 is what is used to power the storyteller and all the animatronics in the Pizzaplex, because something is happening again. Edwin never witnesses the Mimic do anything in the Mimic story. What the heck is he so scared of? I think Secret of the Mimic is going to fill in the blanks and tell us exactly what Edwin went through that caused the kind of reaction he had in the storyteller. Another thing I want to understand is who exactly are we playing as? Notice how in every main FNAF game we play as an important character. In FNAF 1, 3, 4, Sister Location, and Pizza Sim, we are Mike Afton. In FNAF 2, we are Jeremy Fitzgerald, who I have reason to believe is friends with Mike. In FNAF World, I believe we play as Cassidy. In Ultimate Custom Night, we are William Afton. In Help Wanted and Curse of Dreadbear, we are Vanessa. In Security Breach, we are Gregory. In Ruin, we are Cassie. And in Help Wanted 2, we are Cassie's dad. We are an important character in every single main FNAF game, with the exceptions being Special Delivery and Into the Pit, but those are not as important as the other games I listed when it comes to story. So I think Secret of the Mimic should follow the same trend as literally every other FNAF game. Now, we could be playing as a brand new character. In fact, I think we are most likely just a new character. Gregory and Cassie were new characters in the games they were introduced in, but they both ended up being super important to the lore anyway. The same thing can absolutely happen in Secret of the Mimic. However, let's say there is a small chance that we are a character we have met before. Who exactly would that character be? This might sound crazy, but if we do end up being someone we have met already, then my bets are on Cassie's dad, who as of right now has no official name. Now obviously a major issue with this theory is that would mean Cassie's dad is already an adult in 1979, but he also lived long enough to still be alive in the Pizzaplex era, and have Cassie about a decade before Security Breach. We aren't given an exact age for Cassie, but we do know she's close to Gregory's age. Believe it or not, but if we go off of what the book's hint at, Gregory is at the youngest 14 in Security Breach. We also know Cassie is probably a bit younger than Gregory, because in Escape the Pizzaplex, we also learn that Cassie would spend a lot of time in the Pizzaplex's daycare when she was younger. Anyway, this would all mean that Cassie's dad would be super old when he has Cassie, if he were to be the Secret of the Mimic protagonist, which it's not impossible, but also would feel like an oversight. The reason I think Cassie's dad is possible is because of one character being hinted at to be in this new game, Mexis. In an update we got last December for Help Wanted 2, we started experiencing memories from Murray's costume manor, such as the Tiger Rock plushie, Jackie, the manor itself, and lastly, the Mexis machine. The Mexis machine is used in Ruin to lock away the Mimic under the Pizzaplex. Now we are seeing hints that Mexis' origins will be in a game that is literally all about the Mimic. I think it's likely we will see how Mexis was built and how Mexis knows how to lock the Mimic away in the first place. Why am I connecting this to Cassie's dad? For one, Mexis is randomly showing up in Cassie's dad's memories, and also we know from Ruin and Help Wanted 2 that his favorite Fazbear character is Bonnie. He collects old Fazbear merch and he keeps a Bonnie mask. Bonnie is a blue rabbit. Now, Mexis is also a bluish rabbit character, which may be purposeful to connect him to Bonnie. Our character is also seen using a data diver, which is confirmed by Steelwool to intentionally look like a Faz wrench.
And it obviously has a more than a passing resemblance to the Faz wrench.
Yes!
Not unintentional, yeah.
One of the tools Cassie's dad uses in the Pizzaplex. Now, another thing I want to talk about is that I have noticed that characters like Mr. Hippo, Happy Frog, Orville Elephant, Pig Patch, Tiger Rock, Monty, Music Man, Helpy, the Staff Bots, the Blue Mask in FNAF 3, and even Gear Rat are all teased in this new game, meaning all of those characters existed in the 1970s. Jackie even looks like a mix of Circus Baby and the Puppet. Tales from the Pizzaplex tells us Edwin made Mr. Hugs, and I will confirm right now that number 1 crate is in the demo that Steelwool showed off at the PAX West. In Tales from the Pizzaplex, Edwin also has costumes for Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. So it looks like literally every Fazbear character was created in the 70s, and I mean all of them. This would also include Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, which obviously exist. We literally see Fredbear's Family Diner posters in both the trailer and the PAX West demo. So one cool idea I have is, what if to foreshadow Glitchtrap, there's one part in the game where we get chased by the Mimic when he wears a Spring Bonnie suit. Just a neat idea, I think. And to wrap up the secret of the Mimic predictions, I also think that this should explain what the heck the fire was, because in Curse of Dreadbear, we were introduced to this new event called FallFest, and we were introduced to it a second time in Help Wanted 2. FallFest is seeming to go back all the way to the 70s and is probably one of the earliest points for Fazbear entertainment, which is also supported by the Silver Eyes, since in the Silver Eyes, when Charlie looks through the books that Henry owns, some of the books are about the traveling carnival and circus. Help Wanted 2 also depicts a FallFest burning down in the Phaser Blast levels and the Carousel level. And it is also randomly mentioned that by the time of the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues, the Mimic's head had to get replaced, and that the Mimic apparently looked like it had survived some sort of fire. So I'm hoping that this game sheds some light on what exactly that fire that the Mimic survived was, and what caused that fire. There's a lot of blanks from Tales from the Pizzaplex that kind of need to get filled in by this new game, which Steelwool even hinted at themselves by saying that if you've read the books, you don't know the full story, pretty much telling us that the games are going to fill in all of those weird blanks that the Tales from the Pizzaplex books left out. Anyway, I'm excited for Secret of the Mimic. It looks like something very different from what we usually get in FNAF. I have high hopes for this game, and I will be doing a Let's Play on it on June 13th as soon as it's out. See you all then.